I found a second wedding ring in his car. I put it back. Then filed one form that ruined him. It was sitting in the little rubber tray inside the center console, half hidden under a stack of old parking receipts and a fast food straw wrapper, like it had fallen out by accident and then been forgotten on purpose. A plain gold band. Not his. Not mine. I stared at it so long my eyes started doing that blurry thing they do when you're trying not to cry, and my hand hovered over it like it might bite me if I touched it. The car smelled like his cologne and stale coffee. The engine was still ticking as it cooled. My own wedding ring felt suddenly too tight, like it had swelled on my finger. I picked it up anyway, pinched between my thumb and index finger, and it was heavier than I expected. Real gold heavy. It warmed quickly from my skin. I turned it and caught a glimpse of the inside, engraving. 2 initials and a date. Not ours. Not even close. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my body forgot how to stand. I leaned against the steering wheel, breathing through my nose, forcing air into my lungs like I was underwater. Then I heard the front door of our house open behind me, the soft squeak of the hinge I'd been meaning to oil, and my husband's voice floated out, casual. Mia? You coming in? The food's gonna get cold. I closed my hand around the ring so fast it left a little circle imprint in my palm. It was a Saturday night, and we'd been married for 4 years, together for 9. His name is Connor. Mine is Mia. We live in a quiet neighborhood where people wave at each other while walking dogs and talk about lawn fertilizer like it matters. Connor works in real estate, one of those guys who can make any room feel like it's leaning toward him. He's good-looking in a way that people comment on, even when you wish they wouldn't. I'm an administrative coordinator at a medical office, which means I spend my day keeping other people's chaos from showing. When Connor and I met, I liked that he seemed so certain. He made decisions quickly. He made plans. He said things like, "I've got you," and I believed him because it felt like a relief to be believed in. The first year of marriage felt like that, relief. We hosted friends. We painted the living room. We argued about where to put the couch and then laughed about it. I had this picture in my head of what our life was going to look like, and for a while, it matched. Then the little gaps started. Not the kind you can point at and say, "That's cheating." The kind that just makes you tired. Connor staying late for a client. Connor suddenly working weekends. Connor always having his phone on silent and face down. Connor becoming weirdly private about money even though we had joint accounts. If I asked questions, he'd act like I was accusing him of something, and I'd feel guilty for even asking. He'd say, "Do you not trust me?" with this wounded tone that made me immediately backpedal. And because I didn't have proof, I told myself I was the problem. I told myself I was anxious. I told myself real estate is hectic. I told myself marriage has seasons. Then I found a second wedding ring in his car. I didn't storm inside. I didn't throw it at him. I didn't march into the kitchen and demand an explanation with my voice shaking and mascara running, like the dramatic version of myself might have done in a movie. I just sat there in the driver's seat with the ring in my closed fist and listened to my heart pounding in my ears while Connor called my name again, closer this time, footsteps coming down the driveway. I opened the console, slid the ring back into the tray exactly where it had been, and layered the receipts over it like I was tucking a secret back into bed. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press my palms flat against my jeans for a second. Then I grabbed the takeout bag from the passenger seat, pasted a normal expression onto my face, and stepped out of the car. Connor was standing on the porch in sweatpants, keys in hand, smiling like I was bringing him dinner and not carrying a grenade in my chest. "Hey," he said, leaning in to kiss me. His lips brushed mine. I tasted mint gum. I felt my body flinch and forced myself not to recoil. "Traffic," I said, because it was the first harmless word I could find. He nodded, already looking past me toward the bag. "Smells good." Inside, he ate like nothing was wrong. He talked about a listing. He complained about a client who wanted a mid-century vibe on a budget that screamed cheap. I laughed in the right places, my throat tight, my mind running in loops. The ring. The engraving. The date. Who wears 2 wedding rings? Who keeps a second one in the console like spare change? That night, when he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my ring feeling like a weight. I kept opening my hand in the dark like I could still feel the circle imprint from where I'd held that other ring. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was in that strange stage where your brain is still trying to protect you by insisting there has to be a reasonable explanation. The next morning, Connor left early, saying he had an urgent showing. He kissed my forehead, grabbed his blazer, and was gone before I could even ask what time he'd be home. The front door clicked shut, and the house went quiet in a way that made my skin crawl. I went to his car. I'm not proud of that sentence, but it's the truth. I walked down the driveway like I was going to check the mail, heart hammering, and opened the passenger door like I belonged there, because I did. We were married. That was our car. That was our life. The console tray was exactly as I'd left it, receipts on top, ring hidden beneath. I lifted the receipts with slow, careful fingers, like I was afraid something might jump out. There it was. This time I didn't just glance. I held it up to the morning light and read the engraving properly. 2 initials, S.R. A date, October 14, 23. Our anniversary is in June. My initials don't start with S, Connor's don't start with R. I sat in the car again, and this time I did cry, quietly, because even crying felt like it might make the situation real in a way I wasn't ready for. Tears slid down into the corners of my mouth and tasted salty and bitter. I wiped them with the back of my hand and stared at the date. October 2023 was last year. I did the thing people always say they'd never do, I started digging. I didn't hack anything. I didn't install trackers. I didn't do some elaborate spy operation. I just followed the small trails Connor had gotten sloppy about because he thought I'd never look. First, I went through our shared calendar. There it was. Conference in October. 2 days blocked off. I remembered it now, he'd been out of town, sending me selfies in a hotel mirror, joking about bad room service. I'd missed him. I'd sent him a photo of our dog curled at my feet. He'd replied, "Can't wait to come home." Then I checked our bank statements. Hotel charges in a different city. A nice dinner. A jewelry store purchase right before that October trip. At the time, I'd assumed it was for me. Maybe an early anniversary gift, maybe a surprise. I never saw a gift. He'd said the charge was work stuff, and I'd believed him because I didn't want to be the wife who questions receipts. My hands were steady by the time I opened my laptop and searched public marriage records in that county. I told myself I was being ridiculous even as I typed his full name. I told myself it would come up blank and I'd feel stupid and guilty and then I'd go apologize for doubting him. It didn't come up blank. His name appeared on a marriage license with a woman named Sophie Reynolds. S.R. My vision tunneled. It was like all the sound in my house dropped away. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped looking real. Connor. Married. October 2023. To someone else. I sat there for a long time with my hands on the keyboard, not moving. My dog nudged my knee and I barely felt it. The part of me that still wanted to bargain tried to whisper, maybe it's a different Connor. But the middle initial matched. The age matched. The county matched his conference. My husband hadn't just cheated. He'd built another marriage. The weirdest thing was how quickly my body went from grief to this sharp, practical focus. Not because I'm some ice-cold mastermind. Because panic and betrayal don't leave you many choices. You either fall apart completely, or you start grabbing whatever solid things you can. I called my best friend, Tessa, and told her to come over. When she arrived, she took one look at my face and didn't ask for small talk. I showed her the record on my laptop. I watched her mouth drop open, watched her hand fly to cover it, and somehow seeing someone else react made my chest loosen enough to breathe. "That's illegal," she said finally. "I know," I whispered, because that word, illegal, was the first thing that made it feel less like my fault. Tessa did what good friends do when your brain is too scrambled. She started asking the questions I couldn't. "Do you have access to money?" she asked. "Are your accounts safe? Do you have somewhere to go? Do you want me to stay?" I nodded without really processing. My hands were numb. I kept thinking about October 2023. About him kissing me goodbye. About him coming home and climbing into our bed like he belonged there. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed to understand what I was looking at. The lawyer's voice was calm in a way that made me feel both comforted and nauseous. "Bigamy makes the second marriage void in many cases," she said, careful with her wording. "But it's also a crime. And because your husband is licensed, real estate, correct, there can be professional consequences if he's found to have engaged in fraud or dishonesty." Fraud. Dishonesty. Professional consequences. Connor's entire identity was built on credibility. Trust. Relationship building. People handed him deposits and signatures because they believed him. I didn't tell Connor I knew. Not yet. I needed time to move quietly, the same way he had. I gathered documents, bank statements, the marriage record, screenshots. I opened a new account in my own name. I moved my paycheck. I froze my credit. I changed passwords. All those boring, unromantic steps that feel like you're doing homework while your world is on fire. And then I filed one form. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a courtroom scene. It was a complaint to the state licensing board, an official report that a licensed agent had engaged in fraudulent conduct and dishonesty, with supporting documentation attached. I didn't write it like a revenge letter. I wrote it like I write everything at work: dates, facts, evidence. I attached the public marriage record. I attached proof that he'd represented himself as married to me in transactions during the same period. I hit submit and felt my hands go cold all over again. The form didn't ruin him because I sprinkled fairy dust on it. It ruined him because he'd built his life on a lie that couldn't survive daylight. A week later, Connor came home in the middle of the day, face pale, movements jerky. He walked into the kitchen like he'd been punched. "Did you do something?" he demanded, and I remember noticing his hands were shaking too. I didn't look up from the mug I was holding. My voice sounded strange to me, flat, almost gentle. "Do something like what?" His eyes flashed. "My broker called me in. There's an investigation," he snapped. "They pulled my active listings. They said my license could be suspended." "What did you tell them?" I looked at him then. Really looked. His hair was styled. His shirt was crisp. He looked like Connor. But his eyes didn't look like my husband's eyes anymore. They looked like a stranger's. Someone who'd underestimated the person standing in front of him. "I told the truth," I said. He stared at me, and for a second he tried the old tactic, the wounded tone. "Mia," he said, softer, "why would you do this to me?" The question landed so wrong it almost made me laugh. I set my mug down carefully because my hands were trembling again. "You married someone else," I said. "Well, married to me." His face tightened. "It's complicated," he started. "It's not," I said, and my voice shook on the last word. "It's illegal. It's cruel. And it's not something you accidentally do." He took a step toward me, eyes sharp with anger now that pity didn't work. "You're going to destroy my career," he hissed. I blinked slowly. "You destroyed your career," I said. "I just stopped protecting it." His mouth opened, but no sound came out at first, like he couldn't find a version of the story where he was the victim that made sense out loud. Then he did what I expected, he switched to rage. He called me vindictive. He said I was overreacting. He said I was trying to take everything. He said I was going to regret it. I didn't scream back. I just walked past him, went to the bedroom, and pulled a folder from the drawer where I'd been keeping copies of everything. I came back, slid it across the counter, and said, "These are the divorce papers. You can sign them or your lawyer can talk to mine." His face went pale again when he saw the folder. For a moment, he looked like he might collapse. Then he grabbed it like it burned him and stormed out of the house. Over the next month, everything unraveled the way lies do when you stop holding them up. His broker dropped him. Listings reassigned. Clients backed out. Word spread because real estate is a small world that feeds on gossip. He tried to call me late at night, voice cracking, saying he made a mistake, saying Sophie meant nothing, saying he only did it because he felt trapped. I listened once, long enough to hear how quickly he turned my pain into his excuse, and then I told him not to call again without a lawyer involved. Sophie found me through social media. She messaged me a shaky paragraph saying she didn't know, that Connor told her he was divorced, that she'd moved in with him part-time, that she'd met his friends, that she felt sick. I believed her, mostly because her message didn't ask for anything. It just sounded like someone whose reality had been flipped inside out. I didn't comfort her. I wasn't mean either. I just told her the facts and said, "I'm sorry he did this to both of us." Sometimes, when I'm alone, I still think about that ring in the console. How ordinary it looked. How quiet the moment was when I first held it. How the worst truths don't always arrive with drama, they arrive with paper and engraving and the sound of your husband calling you inside for dinner. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. And if you've ever found something small that opened the door to something huge, a receipt, a ring, a text, a name you weren't supposed to see, share your story in the comments. I read them, and it helps more than I can explain.